Have you ever been laughed at for believing in something no one else could see? Imagine standing in a crowded auction hall, holding the last $90 you have in the world, while dozens of people point, laugh, and call you foolish. Most people would walk away. But sometimes, what looks worthless on the outside carries a hidden story inside. And sometimes, one act of kindness can unlock a treasure far greater than money. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Soul Light Stories, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories that touch the heart. Now, let's begin. The old auction barn in Harland County was packed with people that Saturday afternoon. Farmers, mechanics, shop owners, and collectors filled every wooden bench. They had all come to bid on items recovered from the burned-down Harland Hotel. The hotel had stood in town for nearly a century before a terrible fire destroyed it. Most people believed everything valuable inside had been lost forever. 17-year-old Marcus Johnson stood quietly near the back of the room. His clothes were worn, and his boots had seen better days. He worked after school helping local ranchers repair fences and clean barns. Every dollar he earned was carefully saved. Marcus wasn't there looking for treasure. He was there because he had made a promise. A few months earlier, an elderly man named Mr. Walter Green had passed away. Walter had been one of the few people in town who treated Marcus with genuine kindness. When Marcus was younger and struggling after losing his father, Walter often gave him small jobs and words of encouragement. Never judge something by how it looks today, Walter would always say. Every person and every object has a story. Those words stayed with Marcus. As the auction continued, people bought old furniture, damaged paintings, and rusted tools. Then workers rolled out a large burned safe recovered from the hotel's basement. The crowd immediately started laughing. The safe was blackened by fire. Its metal surface was warped and scarred. One wheel was bent, and its paint had almost completely burned away. "That's nothing but scrap metal," someone shouted. "Maybe it'll make a good boat anchor," another joked. The auctioneer smiled. "Let's start the bidding at $50. Silence. Nobody raised a hand. $50? Anyone? Still nothing. Marcus stared at the safe. Something about it caught his attention. Maybe it was Walter's old advice echoing in his mind. Maybe it was simply curiosity. The auctioneer lowered the price. "How about $30? No one responded. Marcus slowly raised his hand. "I'll give 30. The room burst into laughter. The auctioneer nodded. $30. "Do I hear 40? A local mechanic raised his hand with a grin. 40. More laughter followed. Marcus hesitated before lifting his hand again. 50. The mechanic immediately answered. 60. People were enjoying the spectacle now. Marcus looked at the safe one more time. 70. The mechanic smirked. 80. Marcus swallowed hard. $80 was already more than he should spend. But something inside him told him not to quit. 90. The mechanic laughed and sat back down. "It's all yours, kid." The auctioneer slammed the gavel. "Sold for $90. The crowd chuckled as Marcus handed over nearly all his savings. As workers loaded the safe into an old pickup truck borrowed from a neighbor, people continued making jokes. Marcus smiled politely and thanked them anyway. Because Walter had taught him something else. Kindness costs nothing. That evening, Marcus brought the safe home to the small garage behind the house he shared with his mother. His mother looked surprised. "You spent $90 on that?" Marcus nodded. "I know it sounds crazy." She laughed softly. "Well, your father made a few crazy decisions too." Together they examined the safe. The fire damage was severe, but Marcus noticed something interesting. The metal around the door seemed less damaged than the rest of the safe. Hour after hour, he carefully cleaned away soot and rust. By midnight, he was exhausted. Still, he kept working. Then he noticed a tiny engraved marking nearly hidden beneath years of grime. The marking revealed the safe's manufacturer and an old service panel design. Marcus remembered seeing similar mechanisms while helping repair antique equipment. Carefully, he removed a damaged cover plate. Inside, he discovered something unexpected. A folded envelope. His heart started racing. The envelope had somehow survived the fire. With trembling hands, he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The letter was dated nearly 40 years earlier. It had been written by the hotel's original owner. Marcus read every word. The owner explained that during difficult times, he had hidden important documents and family valuables inside a secret compartment built into the safe. The compartment could only be opened using a concealed release mechanism. Marcus stared at the letter. Could it be true? He searched the safe again. After nearly another hour, he found a tiny metal latch hidden beneath the lower hinge. He pulled it. A section of the safe quietly shifted. A hidden compartment slowly opened. Marcus could hardly believe what he was seeing. Inside were old jewelry boxes, several gold coins, antique watches, and stacks of historical documents. For a moment, he simply sat there in silence. The contents were worth far more than $90. But what happened next revealed Marcus's true character. The following morning, he contacted the town attorney. He explained everything he had found. The attorney was shocked. Technically, Marcus might have been able to keep much of the discovery. Instead, he insisted that the surviving descendants of the hotel's original owner be contacted. News spread quickly throughout Harlan County. The same people who had laughed at Marcus were now amazed. But Marcus wasn't interested in praise. A few weeks later, the owner's family arrived. Many of them had never even known the hidden compartment existed. When they learned what Marcus had done, they were deeply moved. One elderly granddaughter wiped tears from her eyes. Most people would have kept this secret, she said. Marcus simply smiled. My friend Walter taught me that doing the right thing matters more than getting rich. The family decided to reward Marcus anyway. They sold part of the collection and shared a generous portion of the proceeds with him. The money helped pay for college and allowed his mother to finally repair their aging home. But Marcus often said the greatest reward wasn't the money. It was seeing the gratitude on the family's faces. Years later, people in Harlan County still talked about the burned safe. Many remembered the hidden treasure. But the lesson they remembered most was something else. They remembered a young man who chose honesty when nobody was watching. They remembered someone who answered laughter with patience. They remembered someone who practiced kindness even when others mocked him. And in time, Marcus became known not for finding treasure, but for the character he showed after finding it. Because kindness has a strange way of multiplying. One act inspires another. One honest choice encourages someone else to do the same. One compassionate heart can quietly change an entire community. So the next time someone laughs at your dreams, remember Marcus. The next time you have a chance to choose kindness over selfishness, remember Marcus. And the next time you see something, or someone, that others have written off as worthless, take a closer look. You may discover a hidden treasure that everyone else missed. Sometimes the greatest riches are not found inside a safe. Sometimes they're found inside a kind and honest heart. And those treasures never burn, never rust, and never fade away. The treasure from the burned safe changed Marcus Johnson's life forever. But what nobody knew was that the real story was only beginning. The town stopped laughing. People who once mocked him now greeted him with respect. His story spread across neighboring counties, and many called him the luckiest young man in Harlan County. But Marcus never saw himself as lucky. Every time someone congratulated him, he remembered the words of his late friend Walter Green. "Your character is worth more than anything you can own." Months passed. Marcus used part of his reward money to enroll in a local college while continuing to help his mother at home. He could have moved away or spent the money on expensive things, but he chose a different path. One cold winter morning, Marcus was driving through town when he noticed an elderly woman struggling to carry grocery bags through heavy snow. Without hesitation, he parked his truck and hurried over. "Ma'am, let me help you." The woman smiled warmly. "Thank you, son. Most people are too busy to stop." Marcus carried the groceries all the way to her small house. When he reached the porch, he noticed the roof was damaged and several windows were covered with cardboard. The woman explained that her husband had passed away years earlier and she could barely afford food, let alone repairs. Marcus couldn't stop thinking about her situation. The next weekend, he called several friends. Together they repaired the roof, replaced broken windows, and painted the front porch. The elderly woman cried when she saw the finished work. "You've given me hope again," she whispered. Marcus smiled. "Someone once gave hope to me." Word spread quickly. Soon other people in town began helping neighbors as well. A mechanic repaired cars for struggling families. A carpenter fixed damaged homes. Restaurant owners donated meals to seniors living alone. Little by little, kindness began spreading through Harlan County. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, Marcus received a letter. The envelope came from Chicago. Inside was a message from the granddaughter of the hotel owner whose hidden treasure had been discovered. She explained that while sorting through the recovered documents, the family had uncovered records connected to an old charitable fund created decades earlier. The fund had been forgotten for years. According to the documents, the money was intended to help young people pay for education and vocational training. The family wanted Marcus to help decide how the fund should be used. Marcus sat quietly for a long moment. The burned safe had already changed his life once. Now it was creating opportunities for others. Over the next several months, Marcus worked with community leaders to establish scholarships for students facing financial hardship. The first year, 12 students received assistance. The following year, the number doubled. One of the recipients was a young single mother named Sarah. She dreamed of becoming a nurse but couldn't afford tuition. Thanks to the scholarship, she completed her studies. 3 years later, she was working at the county hospital, helping save lives every day. Another recipient became an electrician. Another started a small business. Another became a teacher. Each success story reminded Marcus of a simple truth. Kindness rarely stops with one person. It travels. It grows. It reaches people you may never meet. One evening, nearly 5 years after the auction, Marcus visited Walter Green's grave. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Marcus placed a small bouquet of flowers beside the headstone. For several minutes, he stood silently. Then he smiled. "You were right, Walter," he said softly. "Every person and every object has a story." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Marcus looked across the town below. Lights glowed from homes where families were gathering for dinner. Students were attending school supported by the scholarship fund. Neighbors were helping neighbors. Lives were improving. All because one young man had chosen to see value where others saw nothing. As he turned to leave, Marcus realized something important. The greatest treasure had never been hidden inside the safe. The gold coins would eventually be spent. The watches would age. The valuables would change hands. But kindness was different. Every act of kindness created another. Every generous choice inspired more generosity. And every compassionate heart made the world a little brighter. The crowd at the auction had laughed when Marcus spent $90 on a burned piece of metal. Years later, nobody remembered the jokes. What they remembered was the young man who chose honesty over greed. The young man who shared his blessings. The young man who proved that true wealth is measured not by what you keep, but by what you give. And that lesson continued to shine long after the treasure was gone. Because when kindness becomes part of your story, its impact can last for generations. And sometimes, the smallest act of goodness unlocks a future more valuable than any hidden fortune ever could.